UFC Fight Night, Luque Muhammad 2. We have a pretty awesome welterweight bout, and I honestly I don't think it's going to be the same bout that we saw so many years ago. Doesn't mean that it doesn't end necessarily the same way it did so many years ago. Definitely a solid main event on what is a weird motherfucking card. I'm going to be honest with you. It's possibly one of the weirder cards just to have two guys that just joined into the UFC coming out of Dana White Contender Series and their now co-main events. And don't get me wrong, I mean, it is a credit to how good these guys are and what the company thinks of them, but it's definitely interesting. It's almost back to the old days of what fight nights were, where it really was like prospects coming up versus mini pay-per-views as they become. So to look through, we got some Canadians on the card. We got Tj Laramie on the card. We have a man who's stepping, out of the shadows in the body snatcher, Jesse Ronson, coming back off of, PEDs, steroids. He's putting that behind him. Anybody can argue what it was, a supplement, not a supplement. I don't even know what the story was. And I didn't really care. I'm just excited to see the guy back in the cage against someone who I like to fade in Rafa Garcia. So it's almost like a perfect setup. And someone who fades too, someone who does body work. It's going to be just fun to watch. But let's just delve right into this sloppy ass card, Luque Muhammad 2. And we'll start off with probably the closest lined main event we've had in a while. What is the line sitting at right now for Vicente Luque and one Belal Muhammad?
You have Vicente Luque sitting at a minus 175 with the return on Belal Muhammad at a plus 150.
Okay. So, I mean, I think if Muhammad doesn't have the showing he had against Wonder Boy, this line would probably be a lot wider. But I've gone back and forth on this, and then now I've set it in my mind. Although Muhammad's wrestling is really good, I'm now thinking, I'm putting too much weight into where his stock is because of what he did to Wonder Boy. Wonder Boy just has brutal takedown defense. And for me, he's been able to get away from people, but once people wrap him up and grab him, they can take him down. And I don't know. I know it was a pretty dominant performance in his last performance, but I was really leaning more below. And I think now I may be on the Luque train. Honestly, man, I'm interested to hear what you have to say on this one because we know what it's going to come down to. If it stays on the feet, Vicente Luque has a huge advantage. When it's on the ground, though, he also has some slick submissions and is aggressive with his strikes and has power in his hands. So I wonder how that plays out on the ground, if Muhammad will be able to get the time and the control that he wants to, and see if he can take Luque into deep waters and maybe even put him out late, if not take a decision. 5 rounds could benefit him. What's your thoughts on this one? And I know, you can hear me going back and forth. A lot of people have gone back and forth on this. I'm assuming you probably have as well, too. What's your take on this one?
Yeah, for me, it's a little bit of a tough one, but in the same respect, it's not because I do not care for Belal Muhammad. His last fight against his fight against Stephen Thompson to me wasn't overly impressive, like the same way Gilbert Burns' fight against Stephen Thompson wasn't overly impressive. Like, you can't just lay and prey on a guy, and that's not going to work against a guy like Vicente Luque. Like, I know a lot of people are saying that Belal wins minutes, and there is a good chance that he could. Vicente Luque is extremely easy to take down, but I would trust that guys like Michael Chiesa would stand a better chance in the ground game than a guy like Belal Muhammad. So I like Vicente Luque a lot in the spot, man. I think he's got so many more ways to win. And to me, this is kind of an easy way to top ticket this from a betting perspective, because over 5 rounds, I would assume that Vicente Luque gets it done. So you have, at least as said on the Bet365 book, you have him finishing the fight as a prop. And Belal Muhammad isn't going to finish Vicente Luque. I don't think Belal Muhammad's finished fucking anybody. To remember the name is more or less remember the decision. So if he's going to win, it's going to be over 25 minutes. It's not like it's going to end inside the distance. Not against a game guy like Vicente Luque. So
yeah, Luque will walk through an army, brick walls, army, you name it, meteorites. That man will walk through pretty much fucking anything.
Yeah, and there's nowhere in this fight where I think Belal Muhammad actually poses a threat to finishing him. Like Vicente Luque is a black belt, so in the jiu-jitsu game, I heavily favor Vicente Luque. And on the feet, Vicente Luque is going to beat the shit out of him. So
Yeah.
it's if Bilal Muhammad wins, it's going to be a blanket type fight where he lays on top of him and just rides out the clock, and it will not be exciting. So I think Vicente Luque wins.
Some guys are putting some stock into Muhammad's time he's been spending with some of the Dagestani wrestlers, and it's like, yeah, but you don't just pass on that talent and that pedigree, the years of built positioning and everything else. You don't just pass that on in under a year. So yeah, I'm with you on this. You sort of, I've been back and forth, but you've sort of nailed down how I look at this fight and how I think we may approach it depending on what we agree upon for the parlay officially. But I like your approach. I think it makes sense. Any other thoughts on the main event before we move on?
Oh man, so that pretty much sums it up. I said it's nice that we actually get a main event where the lines are a little bit lined more correctly with the way the betting's been going for MMA lately. Laying minus the fucking 550 on fights is a little sketchy when you're betting on people to punch each other in the face. So I'm just happy that we're not laying chalk on this one.
For sure. Okay, next on the card we have Cal Baralo against Omar Godziev. I mean, we know what this is going to be. It's going to be a man trying to close distance, trying to get at hips, get at, legs, one limb, two limbs, shooting for whatever he can, or even pressing it up against the cage. In Omar Godziev, we're going to have a slick, striking, evasive, and solid grappler in Baralo. I got to learn how to say his name properly. We know what he was able to do and even make sort of nullify Aaron Jeffries, and Aaron Jeffrey, friend of the podcast, he was able to sort of take a guy who's so vicious, who comes in with elbows, knees, and a Canadian destroyer in Aaron Jeffries and nullify him. And it is because of the weapons that he brings to the table. It is because of some of his takedown defense and his grappling up against the cage. So I'm very interested to see how this one plays out. Omar Godziev, this guy he seems to be the real deal at 13-0. He's a bit of a monster. I'm curious to see what your take is on this. We know it's grappler versus striker versus some grappling. So how do you see this one playing out, man? I'm back and forth on this. I almost want to take the shot. But really, actually, I guess that would also depend on where the line's at, because depending on the value and where it may go, this could end up being almost pick 'em depending on how it could play out. So what's the line sitting at right now?
The line right now is sitting at a minus 138 for Garcia with a return on CO at a plus 110. So it's a fairly even line fight per se. You kind of hit the nail on the head on this one, man. Like, essentially, Garcia is going to want to get this fight to the ground. He's not going to want to play the striking game with CO. We saw CO, as you said, he kind of had like a lackluster win against Aaron Jeffries. They both kind of nullified each other, and CO was just able to get the better of the grappling and clinch exchanges. Came back on the Contender Series, I think about a month and a half later, and KO'd his opponent in the first round. So you kind of see where CO is going to be at. It's just a matter of Garcia is going to be able to get this fight to the ground. This is his first fight in the UFC after winning his fight on the Contender Series by knee bar. I do believe he'll have a strong advantage on the ground, but to me, this is kind of a toss-up one. Like we always say, man, every fight starts standing, and I do credit Aaron Jeffries' grappling to be fairly high. But whenever it comes to these Dagestani guys, as we said, man, the guy's got in this case, an EV at the end of his name, but he's got that Russian treatment, right? So it's just, is he going to be like the Russians where we like to see like Khabib and all them, or is he going to be like Tajir where he's kind of a wash? So it's definitely a flip a coin fight for me. I would think.
And what did you say? Sorry, what did you say? Baralo is, what is he lined at right now?
Just a plus 110. It's almost a pick 'em.
Yeah, that is tough. I was gonna say if it's say even plus 130, plus 150, why not just take a shot at the dog, because it is pretty much a pick 'em. And it's hard to say, like 5, 6. I could see either guy 5, 6 times out of 10 winning.
And that's the thing. Yeah. Like, even prop wise, like I struggle to find a spot, right? Like, I personally think this fight's going to go to a decision. If I'm being honest, I think CO has a good enough grappling defense where he's going to be able to nullify it, but I don't think he'll be able to nullify it for 3 rounds. That being said, I don't think Garcia is going to be able to actually implement his game plan fully to get it to the point where he's going to be able to round up that sub. But To be honest, from a betting perspective, this fight's kind of a stay away from me just because both guys are so relatively unproven. I would assume Garcia probably rides out a decision but once again, maybe I'm giving him a little bit of the Russian treatment here. So the next fight on the card, we have Andre Fiallo versus Miguel Baheza. Well, once again, man, this card's filled with fights that to me are almost should be lined as a pick 'em. But in this fight, I'm honestly going to ride with the dog in this one. I like Andre Fiallo in this fight just because Miguel Baheza showed a lot in the Chaos Williams fight where he doesn't like being pressured. If you watch the Ponzinibbio fight, first round, you can tell he doesn't like being pressured. Like whenever he's on his back foot, he just seems out of place. Andre Fiallo is kind of a 50-50 fighter in the way he fights. It's the only thing that makes me nervous about him in the spot because he doesn't always 100% show up. If you look at his record, the fight against Michel Pereira, he looked really good in. Like that fight was a lot closer than the unanimous decision would suggest. But then he goes on to lose to guys like Antonio dos Santos Jr., where there was kind of a very lackluster, unimpressive win. But I think he's going to take advantage of this situation. I think that he'll understand after his last loss that he needs to come in and make a statement. And I think he'll be able to beat Miguel Baheza in this fight just based on pressure and winning minutes.
I mean, with Baheza, that is something that he is a good hammer, not a good nail. You could see in his last fight, he just, as soon as he got touched, you see in some guys, as soon as they get touched, they sort of fold back. And like I was mentioning, like the biggest nail that there was that was not a good nail is Brock Lesnar. You see somebody that's such a dominant powerhouse, and then as soon as they get touched, they start just to crumble back. You see them turn away. And yeah, I mean, I sort of respect your position on that, but it is also what version are we going to get of Fiallo? But at the same time, he's not really lost. He's lost once in his last 6, 7.
Yeah, about that. His last fight was to Carlos, or last loss was to Carlos Jr. Well, I guess other than Pereira. So
yeah, I mean, it's all going to come down to the pressure. I'm probably going to stay away from this one, but also maybe take a look at a live bet on this. What's the line sitting at right now?
Right now the line is set at stupid book changed up the stupid order. Minus 170 for Miguel Baheza and a plus 140 for the return on Andre Fiallo.
And what's inside the distance?
Minus 188 for fight doesn't go the distance. Andre Fiallo inside the distance is plus 260. So, and Miguel Baheza is plus 150 for fight. Honestly, and maybe I'm just going crazy because my win on the hazmat decision last week, but I think Fiallo at plus 450, the decision isn't a bad beat either. Just because I said I think he wins minutes. Miguel Baheza doesn't do well with his back foot. So I think if Miguel Baheza wins, he's probably going to clip him, or those calf kicks that he lands are going to get him to the finish. But I think Andre Fiallo, I think his pressure is just what's going to bring him further in this fight. You got those caution in the wind, man.
Got it. Okay. All right. Next fights on the card. We have Mayra Bueno Silva against Yanan Wu. I mean, I could have just left my computer freezing anyways. Normally, I don't. Normally, I'm a big supporter of women's MMA. This fight, I'm not excited about. Not at all, and not really because of the Bueno Silva side. We know that she can be a good hammer, but we also know that there's a fight IQ issue. Yanan Wu is just I don't know, man. I use this word a lot, but unremarkable. We'll just leave it there. That's a nice way of saying terrible, I guess. I feel unfulfilled after I watched the fight.
Yeah, it's not that we're talking poorly about women's MMA here, but the factor that it comes down to is most of these fights end up going to a decision, and most of these fights are close. It's not like in most men's MMA where you see a KO or you see a dominant position. Most of these are fairly close contested boxing matches with some grappling mixed into it. And if you're going to lay minus 450 on somebody, you want them to dominate that fight. And I don't necessarily think that's what you're going to get. I'm pretty sure Bueno Silva is going to win this fight. She should. Yanan Wu is not great. She has one win in the UFC over somebody who's not with the UFC anymore. Her striking is not that great. Her grappling isn't that great. This is probably going to be her last fight in the UFC. But to lay this kind of chalk just doesn't make any sense. I think if you play this fight goes to decision at minus 163. And I think that's your best bet in this fight. Other than that, it's not worth it at all. It's too chalky at this point. The line's gotten way too wide and way too out of hand.
Okay, next fight on the card, we have Pat Sabatini against Tj Laramie. We have Sabatini 16-3-0 against Tj Laramie 12-4-0. Laramie was set to be the next Wayne Gretzky coming out of Canada, the next big GSP, the next great thing, and didn't quite formulate or didn't really come to fruition. I think it's always been a size thing. But the talent is definitely there. He's got good hands, some really solid grappling. Sabatini, for me, man, I think I've faded this guy multiple times because of my play on Jamal Emmers. You know, that play that really left a bad taste in my mouth. Emmers just showing very poor fight IQ and basically handing over the fights and getting heel hooked in the first round. And all what I still think he should have won that fight. But just poor fight IQ, and Sabatini capitalized. But then, you know, I fade him and he looked pretty solid against Tucker Lutz. Like he's relentless with his takedowns. He's opportunistic with his submissions, and you know, he wins the decision against Tucker Lutz. But man, like this line just is getting crazier and crazier. And the one thing that I think someone had mentioned, I can't remember who had mentioned it, but the idea that Tj Laramie is still a young man and we haven't seen him in a while. And what has happened in that time he's been away from the cage is pretty important. Has there been leaps and bounds? Because he already was a very solid top prospect. The only thing that I'm worried about is the size disparity between the two. Now, man, if that line just continues to creep, I'm just going to hit it. I'm going to hit it Tj Laramie just out of value if you have to. What's the line sitting at right now?
Minus 400 for Pat Sabatini, with the return on Tj Laramie being a plus 300.
I'm telling you, man, that it's just too wide. You almost have to. And I get how good Sabatini's looked, but I mean, looking at Emmers just handed in that fight. The last fight against Lutz, he looked good. I know his grappling is top level, and I know Laramie has, although he is a solid grappler, has had some issues in the past. Man, I almost want to take a hit at Tj Laramie. You can, for me, I might just make this a dog play just because it would be dumb not to. But I get it if you see a full on angle and you go with the minus 400 as just as a pick Sabatini, but just stay away. But what's your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, Pat Sabatini is a tough sell for me because once again, like as you pointed out, right, you and I are both on Jamal Emmers in that fight, and Jamal Emmers gave him that fight. Jamal Emmers goes on our list of fade people with poor fight IQ because just like our buddy there, Jared Venera, last weekend, tried to take the back of somebody who is a black belt submission and his only win condition is on his back. Our friend Jamal Emmers did the same thing to Pat Sabatini. He rocked him and then dove into his guard where he had all the win condition. So just to point that out, Jamal Emmers goes on the list of fading poor fight IQ. But the point with Pat Sabatini is I don't think he should have won that fight. You go into his next fight against Tucker Lutz. A lot of us, us Dogger Pass, a lot of people were hyping Tucker Lutz. Tucker Lutz didn't really show up, but a relatively unproven guy. Tj Laramie throws caution to the wind, and he's got a decent ground game as well. So this line is completely blown up to the point where it's past betting. I think TJ is fairly live in the spot. Obviously, I agree that Pat Sabatini should be the favorite, but Tj Laramie plus 800 for KO to me is pretty live because I think Pat Sabatini has shown us that he can be clipped, and Tj Laramie throws caution to the wind. So if Pat Sabatini puts himself in a bad position, I think there's a good chance he'll get clipped. That's the only action I really want on this. From a pick perspective, I think that Pat Sabatini probably rides, maybe a decision, a late submission, but I think Tj Laramie is pretty live for the first round and a half there. And plus 800 for KO. It's worth a sprinkle, but the only action.
Yeah, I think that just the one thing I'm looking at with this fight is just because the line's so wide, then there's that gap in how long he's been fighting. And usually in most cases that would be a detriment, but I don't think in someone at his age and his pedigree and how he's been training his whole life, I don't see that being a negative. So I'm just curious to see what TJ Laramie we get in the cage. So that's what makes me want to just say, okay, fuck it, plus 300.
Yeah, man, he's only 24 years old, right?
Yeah.
Like, so obviously, and that's it. You hear this all the time, right? If somebody who's 30 plus takes a long layoff, that's not good for the career. If somebody who's in their early 20s, man, like that's a good thing. Look at somebody like Kay Hansen, right? Kay Hansen just dropped another fight last week. She needs to take 2 or 3 years off, or 2 years or whatever, maybe a year and a half, and focus on her game. TJ Laramie has had a fairly long layoff, but all he's doing is improving. So I feel like we're going to get a better TJ Laramie. And even if Pat Sabatini wins, I don't think he's going to look like a minus 400 in this spot.
Yeah, so it is a value shot. We'll put that out there at least. I think it's going to be a pick in some form. Next fight on the card, if you want to take the lead.
Next fight on the card, we have Monitor. I hate this guy's name.
Mounir Laziz against Angelusa.
Angelusa. This fight obviously just recently got announced. Angelusa had fought. It'll be just 2 weeks to the day whenever this fight takes place. He had won that fight by unanimous decision. We all know Angelusa from the Contender Series. Came out, looked fairly decent. The guy throws caution, man. He's got decent wrestling, decent striking. Excuse me, Mounir Laziz, the same. But I don't know, man. This fight's a little bit of a tough one. I think the best way to go about this fight is to bet this fight doesn't go the distance. Both guys like to throw caution to win, but it's hard, right? Like with Mounir Laziz, the guy's 34 years old. He's getting up there in his career. Angelusa is 28 years old, and is still improving his game. But I think just because of the short notice, I think Lazier is the spot in this one. But I think this fight's going to be closely contested. I think both guys are going to have their moments, and I'm assuming this rides out to a greasy decision.
Yeah, and it was Angelusa that was supposed to, or that fought, not supposed to fight, that fought Jack Della Maddalena, correct?
Exactly,
yeah.
Which is a tough fucking fight.
I remember you were on the Jack Della side, right? You hit that pick. Yeah. I think I was on the Angelusa side, and I actually sort of got my ass kicked that night for that reason. Ended up messing up a couple things for me. But yeah, I sort of saw him actually putting Jack Della Maddalena away. Little did we know that Maddalena would become and maybe already was the serial killer, whatever the hell he is. That guy walks through fucking everything. He's a murderer.
And if we look at Mounir Laziz, his last fight against Waller Alvarez, he did not look good, man. Like Alvarez just beat the shit out of his body till he dropped him. Like it was not a pretty and it happened in the first round, man. So it's a tough one, man. But I think Lazier's the side, but I wouldn't be surprised if Angelusa came out and got it done. The line's sitting fairly close right now. The line right now, sorry, I just had it pulled up here. The line right now is sitting at minus 200 for Lazier, with Angelusa being a plus 170.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we're a shot on Lusa. Okay, but yeah, I'm sort of leaning Laziz in this one, but we'll see.
I think the short notice will be the biggest factor.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of short notice. The short notice fade may be the way to approach it as well, to maybe simplify it for you. But it might just make it a stay away altogether for me. Speaking of stayaways, let's move on to the next fight on the card. We have Devin Clark and William Knight in what is going to be, I don't know, Tapology has it as light heavyweights. UFC has it as heavyweight.
It's a heavyweight fight.
Yeah. Because William Knight can't I don't know, put down whatever food he's eating, ice cream or whatever, and figure it out. No, I'm just joking. He is a very muscle-bound man. Maybe he should be at heavyweight naturally already anyways. And so he's 11-3-0, couldn't make weight by like 75 pounds last fight. He came out against Devin Clark, who just really, I don't know who Devin Clark just can't figure it out, it seems. 12-6-0. Has some talent, but just gets touched up. And for me, Devin Clark's a fade. William Knight's been a fade. I've faded both of them multiple times. This is another sort of a stay away fight for me. But I think Devin Clark has what it takes to be able to stick around on the outside on William Knight, piece him up. I'm leaning Clark, but I don't really care to. And I'm really not going to put anything in on this one. I think it would be, you could see Knight end up grappling a little bit, leaning Devin Clark up against the cage, leaning that big 275-pound body, whatever the hell it is, and just sort of blazing into him for 3 rounds. Or Clark may be able to be evasive enough and land just enough shots. I don't see a lot of volume. I would say maybe even look at a William Knight prop, how many strikes thrown. To look at something like that, if you can get that on some of your bookies, and go under. And yeah, I mean, that would be maybe a way to play it. But for me, man, it's ultimately a stay away. I'm 2 guys I'm just not impressed with. I don't think they're UFC caliber. Didn't care to watch tape because I've watched so much goddamn tape on these 2. I didn't, you know what I mean? I didn't need to. Watched enough of their fights live as well too, and we know what's going to happen. There's big shots coming, lower volume with some potential grappling up against the cage out of William Knight. Devin Clark's going to look to stay on the outside. I'm getting redundant, but that's just what it's going to be. And I don't even know what Devin Clark's going to look like at a heavyweight. I mean, maybe he's a murderer at heavyweight. You know, maybe the weight cut works out well for him. He comes in fucking dust Knight in 2 seconds. That'd be sort of cool to see as a story. But for me, yeah, I'm just going to stay away from it. What's your thoughts on this one?
I actually like Devin Clark a lot in the spot, man. Believe it or not, maybe I'm just mad because Thick Willie there fucked me last time in his last fight, and I just want to see him get his ass beat at this point. But one thing that made it pretty clear in that fight is, one, this guy likes to bodybuild more than he likes to fight. And 2, you just can't really believe the hype on him. Like, you see this big muscled up dude, man. You think this guy's going to come in and do well. He's not fairly talented, man. And that's the problem with Thick Willie there. He's got a good judo game, doesn't use it. He has a relatively decent striking game, throws in nothing but hooks. So it's hard to put money on him. Where with Devin Clark has a chin issue. But at the end of the day, he got his ass kicked by Eon. And that was his last fight. Didn't look honestly terrible in the fight. Obviously didn't come close to winning it. But, you know, he took his beatings and kept going. He had the fight with Anthony Smith. So, like, he's been fighting the higher echelon of competition. And at the end of the day, man, I think he probably grounds him. It might be a live betting spot because, you know, William Knight may catch him clean in the first and you may get a better line on it. But I don't think Devin Clark grounds him and maybe gets a late submission. I don't really have much faith in William Knight, man. Like, especially with the mat, like, usually whenever people announce like a move up in weight and stuff like that, you know, it's a progression. He's just like, I'm just going to lift weights and show up fucking, as you said, 70 pounds above the weight limit. Like, you're putting stock in a guy that's clearly not taking this career fighting very seriously anymore, where Devin Clark is always amped. He just doesn't do well all the time.
Okay. Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, for some reason, I didn't even, maybe I should have actually watched some more tape. Looking back at Devin Clark, he showed a lot of heart in that fight and actually did sort of win me over.
Yeah, man, the guy lost half his fucking teeth.
Yeah, he looked pretty rough. I remember his dad being, that was a hard one to watch actually at the end, but he just kept coming, man. It's not like he looked like he got caught and whatever else, but he still was rolling and doing his thing. But yeah, I mean, he did sort of win me over in that fight. I had forgotten about that. So I'm with you on that. We'll lean Devin Clark, but for me, it's more of a stay away. We can make it as one of Nick's picks.
I like it.
Okay. Next fight on the card, we have Lena Lansberger against Penny Kanzad in what's going to be pretty much a, kickboxing match, a younger version and Penny Kanzad. And I think for me, that's where I'm leaning. That's where I may even have a very strong pick where I may even put her in the parlay because I think she's just going to roll in this fight. But the line is pretty wide. What's the line sitting at right now?
Line right now is sitting at minus 450 for Penny Kanzad with the return on Lena Lansberg plus 350.
Yeah, I may keep her out of it. I don't know. It's gonna be tough to find spots. We may keep the parlay very tight this week in like a 2 or 3 spot. I think we got to see. We got to remember what did I say to you like on Friday? I'm like, should we take one of these out? Do you remember what I asked? What one I should take out?
Yeah.
The one I was even feeling strong about was Tisha, right?
Fucking Tisha.
Yeah.
No, but she won that fight, man. Fuck the judges. The judges had so many of those fights wrong that night, man.
Yeah, it is what it is. But so yeah, in this fight, I mean, I just think that Panty Kanzad is going to be faster, going to be a much better, so more well-rounded strikes and approach to her game. She was pretty solid up against Raquel Pennington, but I mean, Rocky's able to mix in the grappling just enough to throw someone like her off. And I think that's what really made the difference in that fight. And I don't think that she's going to have to face that as much against Lena Lansberger. We shall see. But yeah, what's your specific take on this fight?
Man, I don't got a hot take on this fight at all. Because as I said, like, I don't want to lay minus 450 on a women's MMA fight. As you said, this is going to be primarily contested on the feet. It probably won't be that close. But in retrospect, if Lena Lansberger can land shots and win a couple minutes, you could go to a greasy split decision. It's just, I can't lay the type of chalk, man. Like, I think Panty Kanzad should be able to win. I feel like she has a higher ceiling in the UFC. I believe these two had fought before, and Kanzad had won by third round TKO or something. But I said, at the end of the day, man, it's bet the fight goes to decision is probably your best bet. Because as I said, in these greasy women's MMA fights where there's not like a super strong favorite, there's a good chance if you hear the word split decision, you're going to be on the receiving end of it. And if you're sitting there with a minus 450 ticket, you're not going to be happy about that. You know what I mean? That's where things get a little bit dicey. So yeah, she beat Lena Lansberger in 2012.
Yeah, that was quite some time ago, but I don't see the breakdown changing much differently. It's pretty much going to, I think, break down the exact same way. You're going to have a 3-round fight, and you're going to get pointed. She's going to get outpointed, and that's just what we're looking at for this one.
That's it, brother.
Moving on to the next fight on the card, we have Brennan Jenkins against Drakkar Klose, who is a huge favorite in this card, and rightfully so. I mean, Jenkins did come on as this guy last minute, and essentially had a little bit of hype behind him because he does finish guys in dramatic fashion. But when you look at the guys that, Klose fought, he's fought Dariush, he's fought Jagos, Green, Venata, he's fought Mark Diakese, sorry. A little bit late, guys. It's been a long week. So he's fought Diakese. He's fought some big names. And I think his strength of schedule is much better. I mean, Jenkins could come out here and dust him with some crazy ass moves, but I'm not going to bet on that. And Klose is obviously the pick, but really where the number is right now, I don't know if I want to touch it at this point. What's the number sitting at?
Minus 600 for Drakkar Klose, with the return being a plus 450.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not touchable. I'm probably just going to stay away from it altogether because, the last thing I would want is that 1% fucking flying knee come up the middle and Klose get caught. I'm not playing that game at minus 600. I would just feel like an idiot for betting minus 600 on someone who's not on a main card. Or no thanks. I'd probably stay away from that one. But I do see Klose being better all around, mixing it up. I think this could be a great, this is gonna be a good fight. But what's fight doesn't go the distance?
Do I have a line on that yet? Let's see. I do. So the fight doesn't go the distance is minus 175.
That's not a bad spot. But I don't know, man. For me, for the most part, there's going to be a lot of stay away this week. I think that where I really want to look at it is maybe mix it up with some Bellator. If we can find 1 or 2 spots on here, pick 2 spots on Bellator, and then see if we can get some professional opinions on some of these picks and see how we can really move forward with them going into the weekend. So, yeah, man, like I said, I think Klose takes this one, but I can't touch minus 600. Next fight in the card, we have Rafa Garcia against the body snatcher, Jesse Ronson. I'm going to be a homer on this one, but I'm also just going to tell you that, like, Jesse Ronson is a fucking world beater. He is a scary, scary individual. His striking, his grappling, and I think that he's just a bad matchup for Rafa Garcia. Someone who's shown gas tank issues multiple times, being hesitant, can't fight off the back foot properly. Like, he's not going to get any room in this fight. And I just think that Ronson's going to be able to push him on the back foot, start to wear that gas tank early, mix up some grappling, and work that body. You're going to see him work that body for sure. If we know that gas tank's the issue, Ronson is the body snatcher. Like, the guy's going to go in and he's going to implement whatever game plan it is to take out, your weakness right away. And Rafa Garcia is a fade in this one hard. I really wish that everybody else wasn't so sharp on Jesse Ronson, and now I think it's at Pick'em. He was, a little bit of a dog at one point this week, and I don't think that is the case anymore. What's the price tag? Is it
minus 110? Minus 110.
Yeah, so we got to pick him. I mean, really, I think I'll even just take this money line straight up, Jesse Ronson, minus 110, and maybe even look at a prop. But I mean, really, it could be a distance play, or you could get him out of there and inside the distance. I could see him winning both ways. But yeah, man, that's my take. I don't know if you're really on the other side of this. I'm not just being a homer with this. I'm already on the fade train of Rafa Garcia, and Ronson, for me, man, is just some bitch. That man's gonna come in and do some damage.
Yeah, so this fight's a little bit of a stay away from me, but I still have an angle on it. The thing with Rafa Garcia is, even in his Nate Lviv fight that he just had, the guy looked gassed, man. Like, the guy does not come in with a good gas tank. So the guy's got about a minute and a half, and then he kind of rides out the rest of the fight. I don't think Jesse Ronson has a bad gas tank. The guy's shown in his previous fights that he's able to go the distance and able to kind of keep his cardio going the whole time. I think you'll probably get a good live bet on this one, because I think Rafa Garcia will probably win the first round. I said he watches fight with Lviv there, and he comes out, man, and the guy's shooting takedown after takedown after takedown. But it's not something he's able to keep up with, though. So I said that's where I'm going to be at with this one. I like your angle. I think Jesse Ronson wins as well. But even at a pick'em price tag, I think you'll probably get a better line after the first. And then I think you're going to see Garcia slow down, and then Ronson start to take over in the later half of the second round leading into the third.
It's not a bad play, man. I really like that play. Get as much value as you can. I may just get it in both ways. Half game, full game, baby. Half game, full game. All right. Next fight in the card, we have the spinning wheel kick heard around the world. Dusted a man who was already dusted and melted himself. Chris Barnett is fighting Martin Buday, 9-1-0 Martin Buday against, Chris Barnett, 22-7-0. And there's one thing I can't get around that everybody else can't get around, is just his height and his reach and his size. At heavyweight, Chris Barnett is a much smaller guy, and I just think this is a horrible matchup for him. I think if he just gets even a little bit of if he allows any distance at all, Budai's just going to grab him, wrap him up, and it's going to be game over, lights out. I'm feeling pretty strongly about Martin Buday in this spot. I think that, Barnett, well, the spinning wheel kick is nice, and the dancing and landing on his ass, it's dope. Love it. I'm not hating on the guy. I think he should cut down to light heavyweight. I think he would be a lot more dynamic at light heavyweight. And this is another reason why he's going to meet grapplers that are just going to chain wrestle him to the ground and take him down, if not just shoot right through him with some wrestling and take him right down. I'm going to go with Martin Buday on this, even if the line is a little wide. He's probably going to be parlayed up in this one. Leave it up to Chris Barnett to maybe shit on my parade. But what's your thoughts on this today, or on this fight?
Yeah, honestly, man, out of all the fights on this card, I think this one's lined up actually fairly fair, to be honest, because I think Martin Buday should actually be a bigger favorite than he is. I don't agree with the minus 600 on Jakar close. I think Brandon Jenkins is actually a lot more live than people think in that spot. But the minus 225 that you're getting on Martin Buday, I don't think it's that bad. I think it's fairly accurate. There's a good chance that Martin Buday is just going to ground Chris Barnett, and Chris Barnett's not going to be able to get up, and he's going to be able to do kind of whatever he wants in this fight. Let's be real, man. Chris Barnett lost the first round to Jean Vellante on all three judges' scorecards. people look at that wheel kick that he landed and seem to think that Chris Barnett's kind of a lot better than he is. Don't get me wrong, the guy's hilarious. For a man his size that can do a backflip is absolutely astonishing and move the way he does. But despite everything he does, he's not a UFC caliber fighter. Martin Boudet is a guy that's coming in that actually has potential in the heavyweight division. And honestly, man, I think he's going to put Chris Barnett on his ass. And as I said, he may ride this out to a decision. He may TKO him. But I think he does whatever he wants in this fight. I don't really see an angle where Chris Barnett wins this one. And then he will land a spinning kick and fuck my day up. But
yeah, but I mean, I'd almost be okay if it happened. But
yeah, exactly. I'll take another backflip from that man.
Yeah, would you say Martin Boudet would be a piece of the parlay?
Yeah, I think so, man. Like I said,
all right.
And I said you're getting a decent line on it, man. Like this one should be lined at like minus 400. I don't know why half these fights are lined the way they are, but this one, ironically, is not. So,
next fight in the card, we have Trey Ogden against Jordan Leavitt. This one I told you already off air. This is not one that I really have had a chance to look at a lot of tape on. We have Jordan Leavitt, who is 9-1-0, Trey Ogden, who is 15-4-0. So I sort of want to leave this one to you to see what your breakdown would be on this one. I know that you don't really have a too crazy of a hot take on it. Maybe the hot take is to just not bet every fight. Stay away from the ones that don't really have that value. If you want to be involved in this fight, maybe look at the over-unders on it. Mess around in that realm on a time prop if you think there's a opportunity there. But otherwise, I'm not touching this one. What's your thoughts on this fight?
Yeah. So as you said, we had the conversation off air, and the thing is that you kind of have a grappler versus grappler fight. But at the end of the day, if you have a grappler versus grappler fight, every fight starts standing. And at the end of the day, I think Trey Ogden has the better stand up. Jordan Leavitt's one of these guys, man, that he's good if he hits the mat, but he's kind of like a Ryan Hall type fighter, where he kind of goes for the same thing over and over and over again, and he'll be good if he's in top position. But I don't like guys that are submission over position guys, and that's kind of what you have with Jordan Leavitt, where he's willing to give up his guard in order to get a submission. But against a guy like Trey Ogden, who is fairly versed in the submission game as well, you know, that's a dicey game, man, because if Trey Ogden's on top of you, he's going to be shooting for his own submissions. And we know how the judges score these things. They're going to see him on top. They're going to give him control position. And unless Leavitt can get it done, then it's probably going to go the other way. I like Ogden in the spot. As I said to you earlier, it's not my hottest take. I think fight goes the distance is probably the best look. I know a lot of people quote that, Trey Ogden has 3 submission losses in the first round. They're fairly early in his career. And he kind of sometimes has a Derek Minner style of fight where he shoots in very blindly and dumb and kind of finds himself in a bad position. But I feel like him coming into the UFC, he won't make the stupid mistakes he's made in the past. So pick-wise, I like Trey Ogden. Bet-wise, fight probably goes the distance, or depending on what the over is. I don't have it on my book right now, but the over 1.5, even if it's a little chalky, is probably your best bet.
All right. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I've seen these guys fight before, but I didn't really delve into tape. And really, mistakes for me in this fight, I'd rather just sort of stay away from it, or at least myself. I'm not going to try to pretend to, give advice on something that I haven't watched any tape on at all this week. So, and that I don't really already have a past take on, right? So, next fight in the card, we have Sam Hughes against Stella Lunas. I do have a take on this one. We always know that we want to fade Sam Hughes. Nunes, for me, I think he's going to ride in this fight. I think he's going to have some power shots, win some big moments. But the line is probably wide as hell at this point, and I'm probably not going to touch this one as well too. What's your what's the line sitting at right now?
The line is in that thing of minus 300 for Stella Lunas, and minus 220. Sorry, for Stella Lunas, and plus 180 at the return on Sam Hughes.
Okay, yeah. I mean, the line doesn't seem too bad, but I mean, how many times out of 10 do you think Nunes wins?
7.
Yeah. So you're considering maybe make her a parlay piece?
Yeah, Sam Hughes isn't good. That's the problem. But once again, I've learned my lesson with women's MMA. I feel like people are going to call me out on citing somebody in this, but like Sam Hughes, if she can get takedowns, which is her only path to victory in this fight, then she can make it greasy. But I like Stella Lunas in this fight, man. Um, like Sam Hughes has lost to literally everybody. She has no wins in the UFC. Her last win was in LFA in 2020 against Danielle Hindley. Not a lady that's in the UFC, not very UFC caliber type material. You could argue that she's fought the tougher competition, being Tisha Torres, Loma Lakbuma, and Luna Pajario. But I don't know, man. Stella Nunes, like to me, this is a setup fight. Like the UFC seems to like this girl. She's fought fairly frequently this year already. And I think they just kind of want to promote her at this point. So I think this is kind of a gimme fight for her.
Yeah, okay. All right, so we'll leave it there. Next fights on the card, we have Kevin Croom against Tang Harley. Man, this is interesting. Tang Harley coming off a loss to Casey Kenny. And Kevin Croom, I mean, he's dropping down a weight for this fight, correct? He's dropping down to
Yeah, he's dropping down a weight.
yeah. I mean, the size discrepancy is really where I'm sort of leaning. If we were to look at an angle in this fight, but at the same time, I think that Tang Harley has a little bit more of a level on Kevin Croom. Kevin Croom's awkward style, though. I'm not saying Casey Kenny has awkward style, but he's just sort of always a go, 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 go. Doesn't sort of relentless with his approach in fighting. And Kevin Croom may create some issues for Tang Harley. And depending on where the line's at, I may want to take a shot at this because I think that, like, how many times out of 10, who are you taking in this? Are you taking Tang Harley or are you taking Kevin Croom?
Torn, man. I think Tang Haley should win, but he's not a fucking fast-paced fighter, man. And if we learn anything from Kevin Croom's last fight, is Kevin Croom tries to win minutes. Like that guy does not care to get punched in the face, man. He'll shoot for takedowns, body kicks, body punches, leg kicks. Like he's going for everything he can to keep the judges impressed with what he's doing. Yeah, the guy's trying to win that fight, man. It's as you said before in the past. That dude is there to win the fight. Win or lose, he is going to give 100%, regardless of what the outcome is.
What's the line right
now? Minus 188 for Tang Haley, with the return on Kevin Croom being a plus 162.
Okay, so I mean, obviously we have a value dog play in Tj Laramie. That's just more of a value situation because the line's so ridiculous. But would you say maybe Kevin Croom would be a dog of the week?
Yeah, I would agree with that, man. I think Kevin Croom is fairly live, and I think the line kind of reflects that as well. I think Tang Haley, don't quote me on this, but I think he opened up at a fairly larger size dog than he is. I think he's been bet down a little bit just because people probably see the same thing we do. He's low volume and doesn't always come out with the best game plan. Kevin Croom is what Kevin Croom is. He's like a Darren Elkins. Like, the guy will take 3 punches to give 1. Like, he doesn't care. He's in your face the whole fight, right?
He's Elliott. He's a Tim Elliott.
That's it. Didn't he just fight Tim Elliott not long ago?
No, aren't they? I think they're teammates, aren't they? Isn't he a Kraus? Isn't Croom a Kraus boy? Pretty sure.
Who did he just recently fight? I thought it was Elliott, but maybe probably talking shit right here. He just recently fought. It was Brian Kelleher. Brian Kelleher, Tim Elliott, and what's the guy just said? The Damage. I get all of them kind of wrapped in the same 3. Don't know why.
But yeah, no, I think I'll roll with Kevin Croom on this one. I think the size, the approach. You can go back and forth. I could see a fight where Tang Haley could win some grappling exchanges, hold him down, get some control time at points, maybe win some striking situations, things that look a little bit nice to the judges, and win a decision. I could see the complete opposite where Croom does get away from him, gets evasive, and lands some big shots on him. And just sort of wins minutes in just making it his fight, making it sort of reckless. Back and forth. I'm just going to go with the dog on that, man. I think there's a couple couple situations like that on this card that if we just take the brain out of it and just look at it honestly, if they're closely aligned, it is a dog or pass situation in some of these fights because you could actually see it go back and forth multiple times. And if that's the case, I mean, unless you really see a sharp angle one way, you got to hit that dog money.
Fair.
All right. So if you were to look at a parlay, my friend, that is the last fight in the card. Yeah. If you were to look at a parlay, what do you think would be the parlay for the night? Because it's pretty tough. We're looking at Martin Baudet. We have, I mean, Drakkar close. I mean, I don't want to do a minus 600, but we may have to almost do it. Do you think Kanzad would be like? Let's just throw these ideas out here and see what you think. But we'll go Tj Luque, inside the distance. What is he sitting at right now? Or let's just pick him straight up, man. Why get greedy with it?
All right, let's do it.
All right. Maybe we'll change it as we go to Twitter with it. But so Tj Luque, Martin Baudet,
and Mr. Bella Nunes. I think Nunes is probably 3 live things. You get a plus 230 on it. It's roughly where we like to stand. It's a 3-team parlay, which goes back to our roots because we keep throwing these 4 legs out there and
they're not working.
Yeah, one of the judges or just bad reads, man. Before is
you had 4 of the variables go up, right?
Yeah, it seems to be an unlucky number for us.
So we'll do that. Kevin Croom is going to be our dog of the week. Sharp play of the week is going to be Jesse Ronson.
Yeah.
And our value dog of the week is going to be Tj Laramie.
I like it. All makes sense to me.
I think we'll leave that there. I think we've found some good spots. And what I'm going to do, and you can message me in the chat, but we have Coach Chris Prickett over 1.5. And we're going to have them break down some of our picks for this week's card. So if you could just message me, let me know some of the ones that of what we talked about. If we're going to go with just having them break down the parlay, we can do that. And we'll go from there, man. Anything you can think about with Bellator? Do you have any hot takes on the Bellator card before we go?
Yeah, as I said earlier, man, I think Corey Anderson at plus 175 is a fucking steal. I think if you look at the Nemkov fight versus Ryan Bader, like I think you saw so many holes. Like I think the line for Nemkov to win that fight by KO was like minus 250. Like it was greased, and he barely wrote out. Did he? Yeah, and he barely wrote out that decision. Like that fight was close, man. So, actually, I think didn't Ryan Bader get the nod in that one? Am I talking shit here? Regardless,
okay, go back and.
Regardless, I think Corey Anderson is super live in that spot, and I think getting plus money on a guy who's beaten so many UFC vets is a steal. I think you can match up a lot of guys like.
What about there and people fight?
Yeah, but it's minus 600, man. There's no value left.
Is that what he's sitting at right now? God damn, I should jump on it earlier.
Fucking even AJ Mckee sitting at a minus 350. That shit's gonna be minus 500 by Friday.
How do you feel about him as a piece in the parlay? I guess
AJ
you don't
Mckee?
want to go above and beyond. As we could make that the Bellator addition to it. So you can go with our parlay, then on the next leg you add Bellator.
Yeah, I like it, man. AJ Mckee to me, you guys 18-0, man, and honestly, I think even if AJ Mckee was in the UFC, man, I think he'd be riding pretty high, be in the top 10. I think Pitbull's on his way out, so I like it, man.
Okay. And then, we'll take a look and see what their thoughts are. Maybe we'll add a couple pieces to the Bellator pool. But all right, brother, as always, it is a pleasure. Enjoy trying to. This is a tougher week trying to get in tape while doing the whole real life thing. But hopefully you were able to get work in and get the tape in, and it didn't disrupt things too much for yourself. Because I think that we've actually found some pretty good spots, considering, like we said at the top of the show, this is a little bit of a sloppy ass card, or at least it appears to be. It may end up being a barn burner of a card and be amazing, but for now, I think we found some sharp spots. And as always, if you enjoy listening on a regular basis, that's awesome. If you have been listening on a regular basis and don't, I mean, I don't know.
The fuck you do? Yo, before we head up, just a quick shout. UFC lines are getting super juice these days. So if you want to jump on it, now is the time. I think coming up to next week's card, man, I think getting Lando Venata at a plus 125 against Charles Jourdain is a fucking steal. And I think that line's going to get flipped over the other way as fight week approaches itself. So I think that's definitely a line coming up. I think it's one thing we have to get smarter about is with the way that they're going about these lines nowadays, man, come fight week, they're so juiced up. And if
So
anybody
why don't we do this moving forward? Why don't we? I was thinking about a way to do Nick's picks. You know, Nick's picks is a portion of the show. Why don't we make Nick's picks a look ahead to next week? So you bring 3 spots on, or whatever many spots on for next week that people need to look ahead to.
That's it. Yo, and if anybody wants to join JBW UFC community, there's a bunch of people that talk shit. If anybody wants to join the Donttap podcast group chat, and you guys are intelligent and not complete fucking degenerates, give us a shout out.
Don't forget, Ladies and Locks, Facebook page as well too.
Yeah.
But as always, we love to watch tape, try to find angles. I know I annoy, but if you're still listening and you don't like it,